Aha. Welcome, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cantor Sarah Keel. My pronouns are she and her. I am the cantor at Temple Beth Shalom of Vero Beach. And on behalf of the group of interfaith religious leaders of the Treasure Coast, the ones who meet once a month for lunch and present to you our interfaith dialogues, I am happy to welcome all of you to our very first interfaith pride ceremony and Pulse Memorial. Swami Dumavati and I are so glad that you are able to be here with us.
Namaste. I'm Swami Dumavati, and this is I could cry right now because this is a beautiful time, a beautiful opportunity to be together, and so grateful that there's so much support for everybody who has joined us, but also for all the speakers, particularly Orlando, one of the survivors, and Jeff, if he makes it also. I really appreciate your time with us. I just want to say I'm from Akashi, and our guru was Ma Jaya, and this is her platform. Interfaith and LGBT was her thing, and just following in her footsteps, she worked extensively with people with AIDS and really showed us the way to hold this space. So just acknowledging her at the very outset. So the program, roughly speaking, we will start with a couple of different pulse related things and a slideshow and a reading of the names of the people who died, followed by Durga Baba and Orlando and possibly Jeff talking about their experiences, and then we'll go into more like the interfaith part of the program. So that's more or less how it's going to be. And without further ado, Kanta, if we could start with the slideshow, and thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna mute myself.
Everybody's got a pain inside. Imaginary wounds they fight to hide. How can I hate them when everybody's got a pulse? I dream in a world that wants my soul. It tells me if I hate, I can control. But I don't believe it, I cannot conceive it, 'cause everybody's got a pulse. I am human, I am love, and my heart beats with my blood. Love will always win underneath the skin. Everybody's got a pulse. Once again I hang my head to cry. I can't find a reason why they died. We will find the answer blowing in the wind. That everybody's got a pulse. I am human, I am love, and my heart beats with my blood. Love will always win underneath the skin. Everybody's got a pulse. Oh yeah! gonna hate now when there's no one left but you? Who are you gonna gun down if you can't kill the truth that's inside of us? It's inside our blood. It's inside of us.
Sarah, you're muted.
So that was the piece of music that you heard along with that slideshow was called Pulse, and it was by Melissa Etheridge as a direct response to the Pulse nightclub shooting. And now we're going to hear from the members of Kashi, our name reading, yes?
Namaste. I'd like to come to you today from the LGBT group at Kashi. We have known ourselves as Kashi Rainbow, and we have the honor and sad privilege to read the names of the victims of the Pulse shooting. There were 49 people who died in this one shooting. And not only that, there were 53 people who were wounded. This shooting occurred on a Latin night at the Pulse nightclub. And we will also be reading the names of the victims, who you will notice were extraordinarily young. And this is a ritual of saying the names that we're also familiar with from the AIDS memorial quilt. AIDS, another epidemic that we lived through, and we would say the names. So please hold the space as we bring the names to you. Thank you.
Akira Monet Murray, 18. Alejandro Barrios Martinez, 21. Amanda Alviar, 25. Angel L. Candelario Padro, 28. Anthony Luis Laureano Disla, 25.
Antonio Devon Brown, 29. Brenda Lee Marquez McCool, 49. Christopher Andrew Leononin, 32. Christopher Joseph Sanfeliz, 24. Corey James Connell, 21.
Daryl Roman Burt II, 29. Bianca Deidre Drayton, 32. Eddie Halamondroy Justice, 30. Edward Eddie Sotomayor Jr., 34.
Enrique L. Rios, 25. Eric Ivan Ortiz Rivera, 36. Frank Hernandez, 27. Frankie Jimmy De Jesus Velasquez, 50.
Geraldo A. Ortiz Jimenez, 25. Gilberto Ramon Silva Menendez, 25. Jason Benjamin Josephat, 19. Javier Jorge Reyes, 40. Jean Carlos Nieves Rodriguez, 27.
John Carlos Mendez Perez, 35. Gerald Arthur Wright, 31. Joel Rayon Panigua, 32. Jonathan Antonio Camoy Vega, 34. Juan Chavez Martinez, 25.
Juan P. Rivera Velasquez, 37. Juan Ramon Guerrero, 22. Kimberly Morris, 37. Leroy Valentin Fernandez, 25.
Luis Daniel Conde, 39. Luis Daniel Wilson Leon, 37. Luis Omar Ocasio Capo, 20. Luis Vielma, 22. Martin Benitez Torres, 33.
Mercedes Marisol Flores, 26. Miguel Anel Honorato, 30. Oscar A. Aracena Montero, 26. Paul Terrell Henry, 41.
Peter O. Gonzalez Cruz, 22. Rudolfo Ayala, 33. Shane Evan Tomlinson, 33. Simon Adrian Carrillo Fernandez, 31.
Stanley Almodovar III, 23. Tevin Eugene Crosby, 25. Xavier Emmanuel Serrano Rosado, 35. Yilmari Rodriguez Sullivan, 24.
Just let's just take a moment, hold those souls in our hearts. As well as their families and loved ones and their friends who are here with us today. I'd like to introduce you to my friend Durga Baba, also known as Axel. And he has quite a story that he will share with us, and also introduce his friends who he's invited to join us today, which I really appreciate. Thank you.
Namaste. My name is Axel Sumayan. I have a small multimedia production company. I'm also known as Durga Baba. I was privileged enough to have my living guru at the time ordaining giving me my spiritual name. I've been part of Kashi since 1997, and I owe Kashi a great deal of my enlightenment. I've worked with Pauls for almost 10 years prior to the incident on June 12th, 2016. That night, I had covered the event that was going on, and I filmed and photographed. And I left approximately 12:35 that evening. I found out of Paul's incident at 6:32 a.m. when I had FBI agents knocking at my door asking for SD cards, and then I noticed that my phone had been blowing up about texts and phone calls. Found out later that day that 49 attendees or patrons of the club had died at the hands of hate and ignorance, 6 of them which were really good friends of mine. It's been, 5 years now, and it still haunts me how people can actually have such hatred, be so ignorant, and in that same realm, use that same ignorance to end people's life. It's hard to embrace that. There was no reason for it. With us today, we have an extraordinary young man by the name of Orlando that I'm glad to have him. His story is amazing. And I would love to hear more about Orlando's experience that night. I'm not sure if is he in? Is he still on? Orlando Torres is one of the victims of that night of Paul's, and his experience is amazing. And I would love for him to share a little bit more of that night and how things transpired, and how does he feel now, and how did that incident make him grow, make him change. I know that through everyone's life, we endure experiences that makes us think twice or makes us change and evolve. And so I would love to hear a little bit more about Orlando. Please share with us your experience that night.
Well, hello, Axel, and thank you for inviting me here. It's a real pleasure to share my experience of what happened that tragic evening of June 12, 2016. It's unbelievable and unforgettable, especially in what I went through. I can't believe it's 5 years, and it seemed like it was just yesterday. And in today's times, we're still seeing mass shootings, unfortunately, and it reminds us of what we went through. And I can feel the pain of people that have lost their loved ones, innocent lives that did not ask for it, but we know there's haters and people with disbeliefs, and they want to take judgment and take innocent lives, which is unfortunate these days. I always say live and let live, but just not everybody's the same. So these people that have snapped and lost it, they think that's the answer to resolve their grief or whatever at innocent cost of lives. But this is the world we live in today, unfortunately.
Orlando, can you share with us a little bit of the experience that you endured that night? How did you get to how did you go to Paul's? Was it something that you go to Paul's every Latin night? How did that happen?
Yeah, well, I helped build the Latino night with the original promoter. I've always had my Monday nights there, a small evening of, it was more like Friends, the show, not Friends, was it? No, my God, not Friends, the other, Cheers.
Okay.
You know what I mean? An example of Cheers. Mondays was like everybody knew each other. It wasn't a large crowd like Saturday night. Here in Orlando, we're limited on LGBTQ venues. So whatever it is that you like to enjoy the certain type of music, it was the same day every week. So we all knew each other here. In our Latin community here, we pretty much every Saturday meet up there, have a great time, enjoy the shows, you know, welcoming everybody. It didn't matter whether you were gay or straight. We've always supported, socialized, see that they always had a great time, great show that the LGBTQ community venues have shown to everyone. So, like I said, Orlando here it's different. It's more of a tighter community than the larger cities that everybody's spread out and not seeing each other. But here we do. We every week see the same faces, and it hurts more that it's like family, losing a family member.
In short, how did you end up at Pulse that night? What did you go with friends? Walk us through your experience. Did you hear the shooting?
Yeah. A friend of mine that I met, her name was Bobby, and she had moved here recently from New York a month and a half ago. And I used to take her to my Monday night Latino night at Pulse every Monday. And I normally dress. My swag name is called Pimp Daddy Orlando, and it's not a real pimp. It's just the style of wearing a fedora hat and a suit. And so it was no picture way back that I dressed that way, and everybody on MySpace would say, "Oh, you look like a pimp daddy. You look like a pimp daddy." So I adapted the word pimp daddy since I roll with an entourage of friends always. So and became a promoter. So that was my swag name, Pimp Daddy Orlando. So I took Bobby that night, and thank God I didn't dress like Pimp Daddy that night. Normally do, but thank God I didn't, because the way I was dressed and what I had to do, I'm sure the gunman would have picked up on my swag or look, and would have, in that restroom, when I laid on top of that toilet bowl, my Pimp Daddy hat would have fell off onto the floor. No time to pick it up. He would have came and saw the hat, and he would have made it his business to know I was in there. Lucky, because I wasn't dressed that way, I was able to hide, bring my feet up, and my friend Bobby followed my lead. And so in case the gunman came in, he didn't see no feet. But my hat would have gave me away. But thank God, like I said, I don't know why I dressed with a t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers, that night. But yeah, we, Bobby said she had to use the restroom. It was almost toward last calls. We got our last drinks, went to the back of the club. We entered the females' restroom, which is two stalls, a handicap stall and a small stall. So I had a friend that I saw out there before going in that came in from Puerto Rico. Helped him out with a lot of drag shows, giving him opportunities. And he wasn't dressed that way. He was just, normal like a boy. And so I went up to him, I kissed him hello. And then from there, I went into the restroom. Minutes after that, shortly, we were hearing gunshots. Bobby says, "Oh, that's the DJ's music effect." I said, "Well, I know my DJ. He does have that pop, pop, pop sound, but it ends with an air horn at the end." So I said, "That don't sound right." I said, "We're not going out there." So we secluded ourselves in the small stall restroom. I don't know where my instincts kicked in just to play it safe. I decided to lay on top of the toilet bowl sideways with my feet up. My friend, lucky was petite, sat on the other half of the toilet bowl with the feet up in case the gunman came in, which he did. He didn't selfie, but he shot in the handicap stall, which a lot of people earlier, which I didn't see, but they ran. There was like 12 to 14 people in the handicap stall. And of course, the surprising pop, pop, pop inside. My God, the gunman's in here. I can't see, but the only way I heard that he was in there when those shots was really louder. He exited out. He went to do more shooting. I tried to call 911. The lines were so busy, I couldn't get through. I text my managers that we're in the Adonis section of the club in the females' restroom to notify the cops that there's a shooter in this club, or here at Pulse. Then I'm hearing people in the back stall. Some were moaning, some were breathing hard, some were talking. I was trying to quiet them down. I didn't know what was the agenda of this gunman. I tried to quiet them down because I didn't know if he was there to take out somebody in the restroom, and if he's still walking around and hears voices, he's going to come back and try to finish the job. So I was trying to tell everybody, shh, shh, quiet, quiet, I know it was hard for many of them because they were panicking, They have to talk. I don't know if they were calling the police department or family members. And then, like I said, within 15 minutes, the gunman comes back in, and he addresses the people in the back of the handicap stall in a very nice, calm, level voice. Please do not text. And I started thinking, my God, this man here, and I say, ma'am, his voice to me sounded like a young boy. He didn't have a heavy, deep, manly voice. So I thought this was some young teenager guy, kid. And he said, please do not text. So then he got on the phone, and I started recording, not for visual, but sound, because I couldn't record visually because I'm on the toilet bowl wall stall, the walls around. And that's when he got on the phone. He said, he's at Pulse nightclub and he doesn't want to answer any questions. And he just wanted to get his message across that America needs to stop bombing ISIS in Syria. So when I heard that, I'm thinking, am I hearing what I think I'm hearing? Who would think, this is the agenda of this gunman and making that statement. We have a terrorist, I found out later on he was radicalizing himself. But it was like a nightmare. I just come back and said, is this a dream? Why am I hearing this in our LGBTQ Pulse nightclub, somebody making a statement? Why us? Why is this? So, well, he got mad. He didn't answer any more questions on the phone. He hung up, and then he heard the phones trickling in a way, and he thought the people were still texting. So he screamed out. He said, didn't I say, and I don't want to say the word, no, didn't I say no more F texting? So then he told everybody, slide your phones to him. I'm thinking, should I give up my phone? But then again, he does not know I'm in there. And Bobby had our phones, so we kept our phones. It came to haunt me later on, that I didn't expect him to be there all night long. I never turned down my ringer, but my ringer later on kind of jeopardized my life and it sounded, and he collected everybody's phone, but that was later on throughout the story. Then he started trying to unjam his gun. I'm hearing the clicking. Somebody in the back said his gun is jammed. So I'm thinking, is that a sign to say, let's take this opportunity and let's jump out and subdue him somehow? But nobody made the move. And I was unaware how many weapons he had. I found out afterwards he had an AR-15 and he had a pistol and he had a knife. So we never made a move, So then when he had finished straightening out his gun, he said, yeah, I got it fixed. And he said, I got plenty of ammunition. So he said that to put a scare in us, do not make an attempt, because he has plenty of ammunition to take away anybody's lives. And then he got on the phone again, and I don't know who he was talking to. He said, where's the nightclub now? And it should be on the news media by now. And I'm here with 3 other gunmen. He's the 4th one. He mentioned a female wearing a bomb vest and playing dead and injured. And he was wearing one, and he had 2 snipers out there to keep the cops from coming in. That was a mind torture, an emotional thing for us to say, my God, this is really happening. This is the man got this plan. They got a bomb vest on the other side. He's got a bomb vest. And we know how terrorists are. You know the history. When they start something, they're ready to end their lives. They don't care what, it's going to happen. So I thought there was no getting out of this. Then at one point, when he had finished with that phone call, he asked somebody in the back stall, anybody black? One guy said, I'm black. A female said, I'm black. And I was thinking, okay, so he has nothing against minorities. I'm thinking he's against white people, white America, white law, even though we had Obama, it was not white. But I was going to say, do you like Puerto Ricans? Then I started analyzing before I was going to say that. Well, he's on Latin night, and I'm sure he already shot a bunch of Puerto Ricans and Latinos. And so I was going to say that, thinking but he said he had no problems with black people. Like he's not there to harm them. But I stood quiet. I just stood quiet. Afterwards, an hour and a half went by. He decided anyway just to spray bullets back there in the handicap stall. Somebody crawled underneath to save themselves and grab it and pull it just to get into our stall and kind of knocked me and Bobby off the toilet seat onto the floor. Now I fell to the floor. My back is exposed. He comes walking around. I feel him touching my right rear pants pocket. My heart rate started going. I didn't know what to do. The only thing is I just figured, well, if I act nervous that I'm alive, he's definitely going to shoot my whole back. So I played dead. I didn't twitch or move. And thank God he left me alone. Surprisingly, because I heard in the club that he was backtracking people that were playing dead. He was reshooting to make sure and bodies were reacting, you know. So I was very lucky. I don't know why. I was protected. He didn't make sure that I was dead, but he left me alone. And from there, you know, 2 hours went by. Now all of a sudden I hear the voices of the cops saying, cop, police, anybody alive, put your hands up, put your hands up. So I'm hearing it clearly. I'm sure the gunman was hearing that just as well. Well, all of a sudden now my phone starts ringing. I said, oh my God, my phone is starting to ring. And I looked at it, I saw a friend's name and it kept ringing, and I see Messenger. My friends were all looking for me. And I'm like, I couldn't answer this phone. I was saying to myself, you guys are ratting me out. I can't answer this phone. They're unaware that the gunman is on the other side of the bathroom stall. So I had to let it ring, and I'm thinking this man is going to try to open up the stall. Bobby is going to panic. I might twitch and move, and thought he would just shoot us on the floor. But thank God he never tried to retrieve the phone to silence it. He was standing ground, anticipating if the cops did hear the phone ring, that they were going to come to the bathroom and for him to be there to take some officers out. But thank God the officers never made the attempt. My phone stopped ringing. I was very relieved that my phone stopped ringing. And then within 45 minutes, all of a sudden, there was a huge explosion. It rocked the bathroom. And people that I found on the news said that they heard it even at the hospital 2 blocks away, this explosion. I thought it was the bomb that he claimed the female plane dead and injured were in a bunch. I thought the other half of the club came down. And then, you know, I was expecting him to set his off. And I was saying, this is the time that he's going to say, I'm just going to see blackout. But apparently I found out it was the police that was trying to do an implosion, but they did it at a wrong spot where the steel beam was, so it did not penetrate to get survivors out of the boys' bathroom. So the police panicked and they used their SWAT vehicle to ram it into the walls. All of a sudden, I'm, you know, my forehead is back of the toilet bowl, and I'm hearing all this boom, bang, bang after that. And then shots. It was like a war zone. And then within a minute or two, all of a sudden, water gushing down my face. I was wondering, where is this gushing water that I couldn't breathe? I had to force my head to the right to gasp for air, a little bit to the left to gasp for air because this water was just gushing down. Like, what is going on? Well, they had killed him out of the main hole. They shot him, they injured him. You know, they took him out. Then cops were making their ways, yelling in our restroom, is any other gunman in here? Any other? And people in the other stalls were saying, no, no, help, help, help. He was the only one who was in. So they came in, they got my friend Bobby up. They were trying to, my Bobby said, my friend Orlando's there on the other side of the toilet bowl. They were saying, Orlando, push yourself up, push it. I said, I can't. They said, Orlando, I said, I can't. You know, 3.5 hours on my left side, I was numb. So I didn't have the strength to push myself up. They were trying to motivate me by saying, soldier, push yourself up. I said, I can't. So they grabbed my right arm, pulled me up, and my phone fell off my shoulders. I told the officer, my phone. He said, no, forget about your phone. He turned me around. Now I see this gaping hole above the toilet bowl. He said, you need to exit out of there. So I proceeded to put my knees on the ledge of the cinder block, stuck my head out. My shoulders got stuck on the cinder block. I couldn't push myself out to save myself. I couldn't pull back in. And that's when an officer outside grabbed my left arm and just yanked me right through the wall, the hole of the wall. I went flying, drenched wet, onto my front side. Cops patted me down to make sure I wasn't another extra gunman that was trying to play it off like a club goer to, you know, escape. So they patted me down. They saw I didn't have anything. They picked me up. I couldn't walk. They escorted me more or less to the pickup truck across the street. Then they brought another victim, wasn't shot. Then they brought one other victim that was shot, and she was just about ready to faint. So they rushed us three quickly to the RMC, and they transferred me into an ambulance, a fire department ambulance, to another city hospital on the other side of town. And when I got off the stretcher and looked at the fire department stretcher, it was looking pinkish red. And I'm thinking, oh my God, don't tell me I'm shot. You know, I'm starting to feel the pain on my shoulders, my neck. I had scrape wounds on my upper shoulder and side torso, but I wasn't shot. But now I realize why, because I was so drenched wet that when the water pipe busted and punching out the holes, it washed up all the victim's blood, and that's what my clothing did. It just absorbed the water with the victim's blood, and that was the stain on the fire department stretcher.
Wow,
I mean, I was relieved that I wasn't shot.
That's an experience beyond belief, and
yes,
I think I speak for most of us, if not all of us. Our hearts go out to you, and
thank you.
Our Shakti, our energies to help you heal through all this, because I know it has to have been traumatizing.
Yeah.
The only thing I can remember of, I wasn't there to experience it, but aftermath, I was there to help move the bodies. As you know, that I'm a first responder volunteer.
Yeah. And you have a picture memory. I don't. Thank I can tell the story because the four walls. Yeah. If I would have been escorted out the club normal way, climbing over bodies, seeing a lot of blood, seeing friends. And for me to tell a story, that picture would come to mind, and it'll be hard to hold. But a visual. I didn't have that.
The eerie, seeing bodies spread out through the whole entire club and through the floors is very traumatizing.
Yeah, I could imagine.
But what has traumatized me the most is the rings, the phones ringing.
Yes.
Where you know that there's no one being able to answer, while you have loved ones trying to reach those individuals that will never answer those calls.
Right.
To date, that is still something that haunts me. But it's nowhere near the experience of being trapped and being, not knowing if you're going to live or not. And I really, on behalf of all of us here, I thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Yeah, and just like you said earlier with those phone call ringing, I said I lost my phone. It hit me afterwards. I'm like, oh my God. Friends, word got around, and I didn't have my phone, and me not answering. I worried more about them worried about because I didn't answer my phone. They know I was there. They're thinking I'm one of the victims, and it bothered me so much that I had to go get a phone as soon as possible that day, cheap phone, just to open up the line so that they can finally see that I answered. Well, without me answering because I lost my phone there, it bothered me. I'm like, they're gonna think I'm one of the victims. Yeah.
Thank you, Orlando. Thank you so much for really, from the bottom of my heart, from
my pleasure.
Here.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us, because I see you have probably said this story many of times throughout the years. Most of us are just hearing it for the first time.
Right.
And it gives us a little more perspective and enlightenment on what happened tonight. And through you, we know this now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure. And God bless everyone just as well. And be careful out there.
Yeah, God bless.
It continuously happened today. So too much mass shooting is still happening today.
Oh, yeah.
So just be careful.
Too much. We will overcome hate. We will overcome hate.
Right.
We will. Thank you. Dumavati.
Thank you.
You're muted.
Cantor Sarah, you're muted.
I want to thank Durga Baba and especially Orlando for telling your story today. And that was a really heavy moment for us. So I just want everyone to take a deep breath in. You can close your eyes and then a deep breath out. And just take a moment to hold Orlando's story in your hearts. Now we're going to transition to the interfaith portion of our afternoon. And I want to first call upon a member of Pride is really, yes, it's a protest and it commemorates the struggles that the LGBTQIA plus community has had. But at its core, it also celebrates us treating each other as fellow human beings. And so Anna Bernholtz, a beloved member of the Temple Beth Shalom community, is going to tell us a little bit about that.
Hi, I'm Anna. I use she, her, or they, them pronouns. Before I start, thank you, Dura Baba and Orlando for being vulnerable and for sharing your stories and your
My pleasure.
I am feeling so good right now. And as you said, we will overcome hate. And I feel like in these moments, this is where hopefully telling a story feels healing, and also acknowledging that there is community that wants to surround you and love you. I'm zooming in today from Boston. I go to school up here at Northeastern, but I grew up in Vero, and that is very much my home and my community. Today I'll be sharing a song called B'Tselem Elohim by Dan Nichols, and I first learned this song in Jewish religious school and in the Jewish Youth Reform movement, which is one of the first places I felt comfortable enough to come out. A couple of words before I start. As a member of the LGBTQ plus community, we don't want to just be tolerated for being queer. We want to be accepted and loved and celebrated. Each of us, whether we're gay, pan, bi, asexual, gender fluid, non-binary, transgender, or an ally, are made exactly in the image of the divine power and are who we are supposed to be. The song B'Tselem Elohim, the words actually in Hebrew translate to in God's image. And I love the idea that we are all made in the image of our higher power, and whether our identity changes, whether it stays constant, whatever our authentic self is made in God's image. And the other part of the song in Hebrew translates to in the beginning, we were all created by God. And I like to think of all of us when we express our authentic selves as being sacred, and that our very existence, and whatever that is in our gender identity and our sexuality, is sacred and it is holy. Feel free to sing along. The song's pretty repetitive. And thank you all for inviting me to be a part of this incredible interfaith service and memorial for the Pulse shooting. So without further ado. Yeah, 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 yeah. 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 We all got a life to live. We all got a gift to give. Just open up your heart. Let it out. We all got a truth to find. We all got a mountain to climb. Just open up your heart. Let it out. Yeah. When I reach out to you and you to me, we become B'Tselem Elohim. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When we share our hopes and our dreams, each one of us B'Tselem Elohim. We all got a tale to tell. We all want to speak it well. Just open up your heart. Let it out. We all got a mountain to climb. We all got a truth to find. Just open up your heart. Let it out. Yeah. When I reach out to you and you to me, we become B'Tselem Elohim. When we share our hopes and our dreams, each one of us B'Tselem Elohim. Breshit bara Elohim. Breshit bara Elohim. B'Tselem Elohim. When I reach out to you and you to me, we become B'Tselem Elohim. When we share our hopes and our dreams, each one of us B'Tselem Elohim. Each one of us B'Tselem Elohim. Thank you all. Happy Pride.
Thank you, Anna. You're delightful, and we know that your family has taken over the this program in the background. It's very nice. Thank you. Our next presenter is a dearly beloved member of the Kashi community. We call her Shiva Devi, and she also has other names, and I welcome her to share her story. Thank you.
Namaste. I'm Emily Elizabeth Shiva Devi Rose. And as Pink sings it, I wish someone would have told me that this life is ours to choose. I was born in 1950 to a Holocaust family. Both my mother and father's family being devastated by that cruelty. My dad escaped from the Nazis with them hot on his tail in 1938, came to the United States, and was back in Europe for World War II and participated in D-Day. I was very proud of my dad, but for whatever reason, I was the inheritor of his sadness. And that was something that stayed with me, that's still with me to this day. By the time I was 3 years old, I knew for sure that I was in the wrong body. My family thought I was always playing with myself down there, when in reality, I was trying to poke the darn thing inside where it belonged. By the time I was 5, I had had 4 corrective surgeries for a defect. During that last surgery, for a period of 2 weeks, the night nurse beat me every night and anally raped me. And in my small mind at the time, my young mind, I thought it was because I was being very sinful, having to want my body changed, to be a girl. I didn't learn until later on that what it really was anti-Semitism. I prayed to God every single night, every single day, that the next day I would wake up in the right body. And I remember in the 1950s seeing the Hunchback back in Notre Dame, and at the end, Quasimodo would say to the gargoyle, "Why was I not made of stone like thee?" And I remember asking God very often, could that be me? After that, as time went on, well, during the time of puberty, my body refused to accept male puberty. And to deal with that, my parents let the doctors chemically convert me with testosterone for 2 years. It was like poison being injected directly into my body. And when those 2 years were up, I developed a very rare and serious form of cancer. And I can't think of any other reason that should have happened to me than being poisoned with testosterone. Then came, from that period on, as I grew into adulthood, a lot of cutting, head banging, burning myself, and finally suicide attempts. At least one of which ended up with me being in the hospital for a really, really long time on the psych ward. As a young adult, about 29 years old, I discovered that transition was possible. And I even found myself a woman who had transitioned, who was a therapist. And I sat my parents down and I asked them for permission to transition. And that was just a bridge too far for them. And they told me if I did that, I pursued that, I would kill them. And so I went right back into the closet. That was not a good time for me. Now we fast forward, I muddled along for 62 years. And at 62, I decided I couldn't go on any further and that I had absolutely enough. And I devised a technique to end my life. And this time it was gonna be foolproof. However, by interesting quirk of fate or intervention, on social media, I discovered the transgender community and found out for the first time that I really was not alone. There wasn't going to be a suicide. There was going to be a transition. Not easy. A lot of things happened in the beginning that were very hard, difficult. The transition caused me and my wife to become economically defunct. We almost became homeless. But on the positive side, just as testosterone was a poison, estrogen turned out to be an elixir that lifted, that removed the veil for me. And for the first time in my life, I started to see color in such a glorious way that I was amazed. It was like a fish taking to water. My amazing new gender therapist was the one who got me in touch with Kashi Ashram, my wife and myself, and brought me to the loving embrace of my guru, Madhya Sati Bhagavati. And from that time on, the past 8 years, I've been practicing ego death, which has been instrumental in me finally coming to believe that I was never cursed, that I was actually blessed. And the only other thing I'm going to tell you about my transition right now is that take a look at me now. For the first time in my life, I am totally happy. So I wanted to close by just sharing some of my philosophy. And I'll start that by saying, by giving you a quote from Mr. Spock. Change is the essential process of all existence, he said. And I wrote it down twice. There is a natural order to things, and it's not what many people would like the world to believe. It does not, the natural order does not believe that a man can't love another man, that a woman can't be in love with another woman, or that gender cannot be fluid. The natural order, which I've many times spoken to people who were yelling and screaming at us at Pride events, is that diversity is the name of the game. Just look around and see the beautiful creation and the volume of diversity, and you surely have to understand that that's God's intent. The Jesuit priest and paleontologist Pierre Teilhard de Chardin wrote of the gradual increase in complexity from the simple to the more complex, and a driving force to oneness. He envisioned that humanity was the secularization of the natural world, and that we were to be the shepherds of God's creation, something that we're not doing very well at right now. Trying to make everything the same is not the same. Being the same is not the same as oneness. Being the same, trying to make everything the same, leads to stagnation. Coming together as one fosters God's diversity. I had a lot more, and I didn't realize when I started writing this that there was going to be such a time limit. And I hope that some of this made sense, but I just wanted to end with a quote, a couple of quotes from a story that is very important to me, Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. He wrote, "My life amounts to no more than one drop in a limitless ocean. Yet what is any ocean but a multitude of drops? And then our lives are not our own. We are bound to others, past and present. And by each crime and every kindness, we birth our future." Namaste.
Thank you, Shiva Devi. So I was thinking about different ways to spotlight queer Jewish voices and to uplift queer Jewish voices. And I thought of this song by queer Jewish singer-songwriter Chava Morel. And as Anna Bernholtz was saying before, one of the important parts of pride is not just learning to accept people who are queer, it's learning to love. And so I wanted to share this song by queer Jewish singer-songwriter Chava Morel that's called Blessed Love. And it is an English rendering of our Jewish prayer for love. Blessed love, holy love, sacred love, abundant love, source of love, let your love love shine down on me. From below, from above, love I'm hope I'm worthy of. O source of love, let your love shine down on me. Before the morning light, I already feel it shining. Before I open up my eyes, I already see it shining. When my road is rough, I can feel your love, and that's enough for me. Blessed love, holy love, sacred love, abundant love, source of love, let your love shine down on me. As above, so below, love from whom all blessings flow. O source of love, let your love shine down on me. On me and the ones I love, shine from below and from above. Protect my family and be a light in me. Shine on me and the ones I love, shine from below and from above. Protect my family and shine through me. Be a light in me. Be a light in me. And now we have a video from the Welcoming Committee at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Vero Beach.
Hi, my name is Andrew Sorbo, and this is my partner Paul Grubbs. We'd like to tell you how we found a spiritual home here in Indian River County.
Pulse, the
Hi, my name is Andrew Sorbo, and this is my partner Paul Grubbs. We'd like to tell you how we found a spiritual home here in Indian River County.
Pulse, the throb of life. What better place to feel it than a disco? But 5 years ago today, a gunman sought to still the pulse of our community. Several years before that, we attended the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Vero Beach for the first time. And right away we felt that same pulse emanating from Reverend Scott Alexander's sermon on doubt, and the way he greeted the congregation with these words: "You are welcome here, whether you are gay or straight, young or old, black or white, or some other wonderful shade of humanity." We knew immediately that this was a place where we could feel free to be ourselves, accepted as equal and not really tolerated, and a home where we could follow our own spiritual pathways. As we became more and more active in the UU community, we recognized that there were already a number of highly respected and embraced LGBTQ members. The front page of our weekly order of service specifically points out that we are a welcoming community and concludes, if you are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or if you think you might be, we welcome you to join with us, to participate fully and openly in our congregational life. These simple words affirm the fellowship's ongoing commitment to diversity and inclusion.
The term welcoming congregation means that a congregation has gone through a lengthy process of discernment, examining its beliefs and everyday practices to understand, just for one example, that sexual identity means sexual orientation, not sexual preference. That my sexual orientation is like my being left-handed. My body told me which hand to use to feed myself as a kid, not my mind making a considered choice. Sexual preference implies that I can sit back, consider the alternatives, and make a choice, like I make when I go to a Baskin and Robbins ice cream shop. I certainly like many of their flavors, can be quite happy eating them, but I prefer to eat some variety of chocolate. A welcoming congregation understands this profound difference between sexual orientation and sexual preference, and we detected that understanding at UUFVB right away.
Another instance when the word pulse carried weighty meaning was January 20th, 1993, as poet Maya Angelou read On the Pulse of the Morning at the initial inauguration of President Clinton. The poem concludes, here on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's faith, your country, and say simply, very simply with hope, good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew and Paul, and you're actually here with us too live, so that's very nice. Thank you. Our next speakers are, I actually met at the Parliament of the World's Religions in Toronto in 2018, and they are delightful. They are a couple. They will talk about themselves, Johnny and Vasu Bandhu, and look forward to hearing from them now. Thank you.
Thank you, Swami, and thank you everyone for being here today in togetherness and community. And I want to especially thank the survivors who are with us for your bravery and your courage to share your story. I'm an American Muslim, and it was less than 24 hours after the Pulse nightclub massacre that I came out publicly as a queer Muslim. And I did so because in the aftermath of such a horrific tragedy, there began a media narrative, as so often happens when things become sensationalized, that this was a story about a Muslim, a terrorist, who, because of his beliefs, was so against the community of LGBTQIA+ people, had such hatred in his heart that he was compelled to commit this act of mass murder. And I felt that it was important to help people understand, even in my own local context, that there really are so many of us who are both and who inhabit that intersection, you know, possibly even including the murderer himself, as it has been reported that he had often visited the nightclub prior to committing this heinous act. And so intersectionality is very important in so many ways. And, as a queer American Muslim, I just thought I would offer 3 brief prayers. As a Muslim, I pray that my community of faith will come to terms with the truth as it is written in our book, what God intends: peace, justice, and healing for the most marginalized among us. And I pray that those in leadership would turn from their wicked ways, would cease the manipulation of young and vulnerable people, would cease to use my religion as a justification for hatred. As an American, I pray that my country would cease bombings, the acts of war in other places around the world that often contribute to the radicalization of those same people. And as a queer person, I pray that someday we would be recognized as equals, as brothers, sisters, and siblings, part of the same human family, and that we wouldn't need to retreat to spaces where we separate ourselves for our own safety, and that others would recognize us not as a group to be pitied or even tolerated, but a group to stand side by side as one human family. And the last thing I will say is, I myself struggled for so long to come out as a queer person, not because I felt wrong, internally in some way, and not because God made me feel that way, but because other people did. And, even growing up, I was sent to conversion therapy, where I was told that I could be fixed. And, really it's the responsibility, in my view, of cisgender and heterosexual people of faith to stand up and speak out, because we'll speak out all day, every day for our own rights, but it isn't until somebody else who will be listened to by those who hate us also speaks up before we see real change. Thank you.
I'm Basubandu, and I'm gay, I'm Buddhist, and I'm Mexican. I'm grateful for everything that my husband is sharing and everybody is sharing today. For me, it was very difficult in the context of Mexico, in the Latin context, to come out and to say to my family that I'm gay. I born in a Christian context, in a Christian family, and I became Buddhist later. But when I was young, I feel afraid for being bullied, for receive bullying from my school, from my companions of the school. And I don't want that somebody else can feel this afraid. In my Buddhist community, we try to make the inclusion and we want more. I would like and I pray for the Buddhist community we can make more inclusion for all people. Be Mexican, be Latin, and in this context, we have something that we call machismo. And machismo is when the people think that be a man is better than other, and it is very strong and it hurts the diversity. Now I feel grateful for have a community like here today that we can support each other. And I want that everybody can have this community, the love, and all the communities of faith, we can make the inclusion together.
You're muted, Cantor. You're muted.
Okay, you'd think by now I would know this. Thank you so much to Johnny and to Vasu Bandhu. And that was actually what Johnny was talking about people of faith standing up for the LGBTQIA plus community. That actually segues perfectly into our next segment by Megan Mash, who is the Minister of Music at Sebastian United Methodist Church. Megan's unable to be here today, so we're going to play a video of her. And the piece that she's going to be playing on piano for us is called Child of God. And it is by a Methodist gay composer named Mark Miller. And he wrote this piece a few years ago in response to the Methodist Church, the United Methodist Church's adoption of what is called the traditional plan. And he felt really upset and disenfranchised by this. And so he decided to write this song.
No matter what people say or think about me, I am a child. I am a child of God. No matter what people say or think about you, you are a child. You are a child of God. No matter what the world says
Thank you, Cantor Sarah. That was perfect. Our next speaker is Sasan Rohani, who is a wonderful human being. Oh, and he's Baha'i. So welcome, Sasan.
Yes, good afternoon. As a person and as a member of Baha'i Faith, my heart is really saddened with what happened 5 years ago. And I pray that God would provide comfort to the family and friend of those 49 people that they lost their life. Baha'u'llah, who is the prophet founder of Baha'i Faith, told us the oneness. We believe that there is one God, one religion, and all of the human beings, they are the one. Regardless where we come from, what kind of nationality, what kind of race, what kind of sexual orientation, what kind of anything, we are all the same. And we have to learn these and live together in perfect harmony. Myself and my family and my friend in my native country, we saw religious prejudice and persecution. And again, one of the tenets of our faith is elimination of all sorts of prejudices. And we need to do that in order to have a better life. I would like to read a couple of passages from Abdul Baha, who is the son of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of Baha'i faith, regarding this subject matter. He said, first one, the diversity in the human family should be cause of love and harmony, as it is in music, when many different notes blend together in making the perfect chord. Also, he said, do not be satisfied until each one with whom you are concerned is to you as a member of your family. Regard each one as your father, as a brother, as a sister, as a mother, or as a child. If you can attain to these, your difficulties will vanish and you will know what to do. And one other small one, he said, ye are fruit of one tree and the leaves on one branch. Again, we are all one. We need to love each other. And I was looking at Orlando's, t-shirt, say, love wins. And that's what Baha'u'llah told us too, that hate is not as strong as love. And eventually love gonna win. And whenever this hatred action would happen, what would do would unite us, would make us understand that we are brothers and sisters and we need to love each other. Unfortunate that 49 people, they lost their life, but also we're learning through this process that, again, there is those people that they hate, more and more we need to love. And we need to love them, those people that they hate, because they don't know better. And eventually, again, the Orlando's t-shirt is correct, that love would win. I love you all, and I would like us all to be together and in future and work toward the oneness of humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sasan. Our next presenter will join us via video, and that is Reverend Carol Ludwig of the Center for Spiritual Development.
My name is Carol Ludwig, and I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Spiritual Care in Vero Beach, and I'm a member of the Interfaith community. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be with you in physically or even on Zoom today. I have a commitment in Orlando and I won't be available. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity to offer this little message to the community on this very special day, for not only for the LGBT community, but for the whole interfaith community and for our country as a whole. It's a very, very special day for our LGBT community brothers and sisters, and I say that figuratively, but I say it literally as well, because my brother is gay. And it was some 50 years ago when he came out. We were young, in our 20s, and he came out, and it was something of a surprise. And yet, thank goodness, I'm part of a family that was loving and accepting and never saw him as any different. I have 6 brothers, and he's in some ways, he's very special, and in other ways, he's just like all the other 5. So I've grown up learning from him about many of the wonderful gifts and talents and sensitivities that the LGBT community offers us. And I've also learned about many of the challenges and difficulties that face them because people are not accepting or not loving, and see them as somehow very different rather than just another flavor of humanity. So I wanted to be with you to say I'm with you in solidarity, and I hope that today's program, I know it's going to be a very poignant one, and I hope that it will help bring us all closer together. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. And our next speaker is Linda Tice. She's from Roseland Methodist Church. And thank you, Linda. I know you're very busy right now, juggling many things. So thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here with everybody today. I wanted to share a story. When I was serving at a church in Orlando, I had 2 women that taught me such a wonderful lesson. And I was serving this church, and a young woman had started to attend the church and asked later if she could speak with me. And so we set up a time in my office, and she came in and she said, Pastor Linda, she goes, I am a lifelong Methodist. I grew up in the church and the youth group. I was so active. And when I came out later, I found that doors were shut to me. And she goes, but I have a daughter now. She and her partner have a daughter, and it was so important for her to have her daughter baptized, and her faith meant a lot to her. And so she just, with tears running down her face, so much pain, she said, nobody will baptize my daughter. And I looked at her and I said, I'll baptize your daughter. And so I remember the ceremony during baptisms. It happens during a worship service in our church. And it was a wonderful time, and she and her partner were there. But her partner refused to come up, and I didn't know this ahead of time, but she sat on the very end of the pew as close as she could get to the baptismal font and the ceremony, but she refused to come up. And I asked her later why she had not come up for her daughter's baptism. And she said, I knew that there were people that were uncomfortable in the congregation, and I didn't want to make them uncomfortable. I didn't want to cause any anxiety, and so I didn't come up. That unselfish act of not standing for her daughter's baptism with her family just touched me so much. And the pain that they went through, the hurt from the church, and yet they were there to love all the people that were there in that congregation, and show them grace. I have never forgotten that message, that lesson that they taught me. And a couple of years later, when they wanted to baptize their second daughter, I said, absolutely, but both of you have to stand up front. I will not do it. I refuse if you're not going to both be there. And they both stood up, and it was a wonderful, loving time. And it just reminds me of the community of faith and community of God, that we've got so many journeys and barriers to break down, but that we can do it through, they focused on love and not on the hurt that had been given to them. They turned around and shared love instead. That reminds me, 5 years ago, I was in Orlando, and the day after walking around the memorial, that spontaneous memorial that had come up at the Phillips Center, and I saw that same community where the focus was not on hate, but on people just loving each other. And it was one community, loving strangers, hugging everybody, being there in kindness and in love, and not focusing on hate. What a wonderful lesson for all of us. Thank you for letting me be here today.
Thank you so much, Reverend Tice. Our next presenter, who will be joining us by video, is Tyler Katz, a member of the TBS community, and they are going to play some violin for us.
Hello everyone, happy Pride. My name is Tyler Katz, they, them, their pronouns. I am with Temple Beth Shalom of Vero Beach, Florida. I am very proud to be a member of the Jewish community and a member of the LGBTQ community. For me, being queer is a part of who I am. It was something I was born with, and for me, being in the community means not just being who I am, but making sure that I stand up for who I am, my rights, and the rights of those in my community. It is a very Jewish value to be yourself even in the face of adversity, and to stand up for yourself even in the face of adversity. We saw this in Genesis with Lech Lecha, when Abraham decided to be Jewish, and he decided to become the first Jew and to follow God, despite the fact that no one else was doing it at that time. And so for me, I can relate because I am a minority in some ways, and because of that, I can face some adversity at times. But I always try and be proud of who I am. I try to stand up for myself. I try to make the world a better place as part of Tikkun Olam, and it is part of my Jewish values as well as part of my queer values. And I think that it is really, really important to be both Jewish and queer. It is great for me, and I really just love being a part of both the Jewish community with Temple Beth Shalom and as part of the LGBTQ community. In addition, I am a musician. I am a violinist. I love to play music. I am also a composer, and I like to write music. I will not be playing one of my compositions today, but I will be playing a composition, or an excerpt of a composition, by an LGBTQ composer. Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky wrote The Nutcracker and Swan Lake, and many other famous pieces. Was a member of the LGBTQ community. He was a Russian composer in the 1800s. And I will be playing an excerpt of his violin concerto in D major.
Isn't that great? I love that flourish at the end there. And it's a perfect segue to the next presenter, because she is the executive director of the Gifford Youth Orchestra, and it is primarily strings, I believe. So Crystal Bourgeois will be speaking next, and she is from the First Woman's Church. Thank you, Crystal.
As a teenage mother, I thought my experience as a mother were universal, so I thought every mother...
Crystal, we're having a hard time with your sound, honey.
One second.
You said you had something you could do, right?
Yeah, is this better?
Yes.
All right. So I was saying that as a teenage mother, I thought my experiences as a mother were universal. So when my son was born, even before they cut the umbilical cord, I knew he was, I didn't have the word for it then, but I knew he was gay. And so I watched him grow up just the way he did. My family just watched him grow up the way he did, because I knew, and I had to wait for him to discover that about himself. But the way that I taught my children to be at one with themselves, whoever and whatever they were, I want to share with you today as the great mother, the divine mother, speaks through me and speaks to the souls and the spirits of those we lost. When she says, through the words of Maya Angelou, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Like the moons and the suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Do you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries. I wasn't going to let my son go through that, because I told him in my own words what Maya said. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. And up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, and I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, like the souls of those we lost in the pulse, like the many who struggle to be themselves. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave by living and being and doing. I am the dream and the hope of the goddess, of the great mother, of my mother, of the divine mother who gave me life. And I tell you what I'm going to do no matter what. I rise. I rise. And I say to you, rise. And so it is.
Thank you, Crystal. The next speaker is a recording, and his name is Louis Oracle, and I met him through the People of Diversity group, which is another interfaith group that's up in Cocoa. I think Becky may still be with us or not, but wonderful person, and I hope you agree with me. Now, I'd like to welcome Oracle to our event today. Thank you for being with us. And you have a very powerful personal story around your spiritual journey, and would welcome you to share that with us today.
Thank you so much for hosting me, Swami Dumavadi. I really appreciate it. Yes, I was a Christian, and I was in a very conservative denomination, Pentecostal holiness. I was involved very much for quite a long time. I even became a minister in the church, and I was the pastor's right-hand man, and I rose to the ranks rather quickly. And you know, it was very much a time for me to hide my sexuality, my sexual orientation at that time as a gay man. And my sexuality was punished for coming out, because one time my pastor discovered that I liked men. And the reason he found out was because I had to go to one of the elders and tell him that I had been raped by another man. I was 16 years old. And when I told him, I was told to tell my mother. And he said, if you don't tell her, I will. And so and there was nobody with me. There was no counseling. I had to tell her on my own. And so then she went and told the pastor, and then the pastor performed an exorcism on me. And I was told that there was something in me that attracted that man to me. So it was my fault. And I was told that if I had been right with God, that I would have been told by God not to walk the road in that certain part that day. So after the exorcism on Friday, Sunday morning, my name was called out in the church congregation as an example of homosexuality. And after that, I really had to hide and become a man as they defined it. And it traumatized me for such a long time.
I'm so sorry. And thank you so much for sharing that very painful and personal experience. So how did you get from that 16-year-old traumatized boy to this day? How did you work that out within yourself? That's a big journey.
I really had to find comfort. I wanted mother. I wanted a divine comfort. I needed that mother. The father was failing me. And so I began a search for the divine feminine. And when I began a search for the divine feminine, I actually almost converted to Judaism, because as I searched back through research, I discovered that Christianity for some time had a divine feminine for quite some time. That was a holdover from Judaism. And then before Judaism came polytheism, pre-Christian polytheism. And pre-Christian polytheism has goddesses, has gods. And that's how I came to polytheism and new paganism in modern times. And that's how I came to Wicca and become a practicing Wiccan. And as a practicing Wiccan, I have given my life over to the goddess, and I have found healing, and I have found strength in my sexual orientation and in my gender identity. I have recently come out as non-binary.
That's very powerful and profound, and I so admire and respect your journey and your integrity in wanting to be whole, to not accepting less for yourself, for not carrying that burden of shame, of somebody else's shame. It's not your shame, it's somebody else's shame. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. I really appreciate it. And it's been so nice talking with you today.
Thank you so much. Blessed
Bye.
be.
We're nearing the end of our program today, and this tapestry of stories of human hearts being shared is, to me, is just beautiful. And introducing the last speaker, technically, it's El Farouk, and I met him again in Toronto at the Parliament of the World's Religions, and he opened a huge world for me personally in connection with Islam. And I was very grateful that he accepted my invitation to join us today. So El Farouk, over to you.
Thank you. My joy and my sadness in being here today with all of you from Toronto, the traditional territories of a number of First Nations, most recently in the stewardship of the Mississaugas of the New Credit. I go by he, him pronouns. The shawl was placed on top of me by my 4-year-old because he says it looks fabulous on me. And I want to share just a few reflections. I recall the receiving a call from somebody from our community, from the 519 Church Street Community Center. It's a City of Toronto Community Center in the neighborhood. It's a community hub space that provides shelter and space and protection to so many over the years in our rainbow communities. And that's how I first learned about the shooting. And I was invited to be part of a vigil. It's in the same park where we have the annual AIDS vigil in Toronto that gathers thousands of people. It's also where beer gardens and other kinds of activities take place during Pride. And so that speaks for me to the multi-layered nature of our community, where we grieve and we celebrate and we praise and we celebrate the sacred and the profane interchangeably in similar spaces and places. And I have to be honest, I was a bit scared going into that space because I didn't know what the reaction was going to be, because the shooter had a name that identified him as being Muslim. And I thought there was going to be a lot of anger. And just talking about it sort of brings me back to that moment and sort of chokes me up, because that's not what I faced. I faced 10,000 people who had gathered to hold each other. And when I got there, there were a few other Muslim folks that I knew, and I pulled them up onto the stage with me when it was my turn to share. And we all sort of took little bits and pieces. And I shared a verse from the Quran at that point in time. And we're in a different venue. We're not in a park. But if the internet changed the definition of community, then COVID has changed the definition of distance. And so we're all equidistant and equally close to each other at this moment as we share this space. And the line from the Quran that I shared at that point in time is, look to your right and look to your left. Wherever you look, you see the face of God. In my tradition, in the Muslim tradition, we don't have representations physical of the divine. Instead, we come to the divine through the 99 most beautiful names. And 3 to 4 of those names have to do with justice. Al-Hakam, Al-Adil, Al-Muqsit, the just one, the most just, the impartial judge, etc., etc. And so when we talk about justice today, and we talk about our lives and the traumas that sometimes religion and community have imposed on us, I always say that as queer and trans folks, we should not replicate the othering and the xenophobia that many of our dominant culture communities may exemplify in their teachings. That as queer and trans folks, we have a gift to bring people together and to bring our traditions together in celebration of our mutual humanity. And that sometimes we need to talk beyond rights to the question of dignity. We all have the breath of the divine in us. We're all made in the image of the divine. I think the problem is that we make the divine in our images, with our prejudices, with our limitations, and with our narrowed visions. And so I would like to end with hope and with a way forward. And one of the favorite Muslim tradition tells us that one of the favorite and most used prayers of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was the prayer of light. And it is a prayer that he recited nightly before going to bed. I would like to share that prayer with you, and I invite you to edit it as your hearts and your minds wish, in order for it to be inclusive of you in whichever way best works for you. As I recite it, I would like to share with you that this is a prayer of cleansing and illumination. As we recite the verses, as I recite the verses, bring attention to each area around and within your body as it is mentioned, if you are willing and able. With each breath, intentionally wash the body with light as we would water, and this is in the Muslim tradition, with water for wudu or ghusl, or smoke when we smudge. Awaken your latifas, your chakras, your energy centers of your body, and be aware of the cleaning, healing, illuminative, and transformative power of light. And light is also one of the 99 most beautiful names of the divine. So I recite this in the Muslim tradition, but I think it is universal in its message. I know a woman who recites it without the reference to the divine because she's an atheist, but it works for her. So as a person of faith, I say, Alhamdulillah, Alleluia. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the tenderly compassionate, the infinitely loving. O Allah, grant me light in my heart, light in my grave, light in front of me, light behind me, light to my right, light to my left, light above me, light below me, light in my ears, light in my eyes, light on my skin, light in my hair, light within my flesh, light in my blood, light in my bones. O Allah, increase my light everywhere. O Allah, grant me light in my heart, light on my tongue, light in my eyes, light in my ears, light to my right, light to my left, light above me, light below me, light in front of me, light behind me, and light within myself. Increase my light. Amen. As we remember the folks that we lost in Pulse, doesn't really matter to me, in my mind, the motivation of Omar Mateen, but the hate, the rage, whatever it is. As we move forward, let us also acknowledge, in Canada, we've just heard about over first 215 Indigenous children bodies dumped in a mass grave at a residential school. We've now just heard of another 100 bodies being found at another residential school in Manitoba. We see injustice around the world, in the Middle East, in all places, right here at home. The way forward is through the heart, and it is through light. May there be healing for all of us. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, El Farouk. And we're going to end our time together with, I'd like Durga Baba. He's a professional. He made an amazing music video that we're going to end our session with. And Kanta Sarah, was there anything you wanted to say before we close out with the music and speaking to Durga Baba?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming and supporting the community. And I see that someone in the chat said, make this a recurring event, and that is our intention. So think of this as the first annual Interfaith Pride Gathering Pulse Memorial. And I want to also thank all of our presenters from the interfaith community for taking the time to come here and speak to us or sing with us or tell your stories to us. Thank you. And thank you to Swami Dumavati.
Good teamwork, Kanta Sarah. So Durga Baba, would you like to introduce the video, and then it's just amazing video. So thank you.
Sure. First of all, thank you for the opportunity of being part of this amazing gathering, and collectively all the wonderful stories, and thank you for sharing everything that you've shared today. Through our lives at 47, I've realized that we are a collective of a lot of emotions and a lot of experiences that makes us and mold us to who we are today. And without further ado, we produced a video, edited and filmed the video with some of my artists, if not all of my artists. And this song is in Spanish and it's in English, and it was intended to bring awareness and enlightenment that hate must end, and that we'll never forget those beautiful souls that their lives were cut short at the hands of ignorance and hate. So, with no more, I introduce you the song called Mil Ángeles, 1,000 Angels. Oh.
¿Cuántas veces soñamos despiertos en un amor que terminó en silencio? Las flores de mi jardín en invierno florecerán porque tu amor fue sincero. Y hoy el destino nos separa, aunque es el mismo que nos une del alma. Qué pena, nunca pude ver tu mirada. Tus sueños se fueron con el alma. Con solo una mirada, una sonrisa, un gesto sin palabras. Y no sé si pueda soportar esta soledad. Y mil ángeles contigo en el cielo, y tu voz que me susurra mis sueños. Nuestros caminos se unirán con el tiempo. Es un amor que será siempre eterno, y mil ángeles contigo en el cielo, y tu voz que me susurra mis sueños. Juventud que se nos va en silencio, es un amor que será siempre eterno. Siempre eterno. Adiós Dios misericordia pido con lo que pasa, que la rabia y el dolor en mí no sean la brasa, y que el ángel que se fue mañana sea quien me abraza, que no haya más dolor y sentirme como en casa. De muchos fuimos testigos, Brianna con 8 tiros, Vanessa asesinada, otro soldado caído. Ya no sé ni lo que digo, Señor, solo te pido justicia para los míos, que no queden en el olvido. Still remember the sweet tenderness in your eyes. Never had the chance to say goodbye. To carry on since you've been gone. 1,000 angels by your side up in heaven. I hear your voice in my dreams, I remember unforgettable moments together. Although you're gone, our love will last forever. 1,000 angels by your side up in heaven. I hear your voice in the wind, I remember unforgettable moments together. I know you're gone, but I will love you forever. Oh, love you forever. Oh, qué dolor al no tenerte aquí. Hoy por siempre seremos el eco de tu voz. In my mind I see you. It's so hard to let you go. Goodbye for now, forever in our hearts with love. Y mi ángel es contigo en el cielo, y tu voz que me susurra mis sueños. Nuestros caminos se unirán con el tiempo. Es un amor que será siempre eterno. 1,000 angels by your side up in heaven. I hear your voice in the wind, I remember unforgettable moments together. I know you're gone, but I will love you forever. Oh, love you forever. Love you forever.
Thank you. And I think, Sarah, you're going to put up the last slide. So if anybody would like to make donations, we're putting the address for Equality Florida. And you may know that this week has been a bad week politically in Florida, and funding for all sorts of stuff has been cut. If you feel moved to, Equality Florida is very active in lobbying for LGBT rights in Florida, but also for the Pulse survivors. So we share that with you at the very end. Thank you. Sarah, you're muted. Sarah, you're still muted.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat as well.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Just awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah, all right. You can unmute and say goodbye if you'd like to, or just say something if you care. Sarah, can you unmute everybody?
Yeah, if you don't mind, share that information of contact or email or website or whatever where to make the donation. Share it not only to us, but email it to all of us as well. That way I can also, at least I will be able to send it out to others that will not be able to be here today.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm going to stop the recording right now.